the place, the environment is going to receive me well, because I strongly and firmly believe that there's a place for everyone. Hey boss babes, welcome and welcome back to my channel. My name is Simone Sanangra. If you are tuning in for the first time, you're more than welcome to be part of the family. And if you're a returning subscriber, you guys already know that I love you so much and I appreciate you so much. Like, words are not even enough, guys. Words are not even enough. So guys, in today's video, we are going to be talking about the reason why I decided to quit my job in Dubai and start all over. The first and foremost point is I was not happy. That's the first point, guys. I'm not adding or subtracting anything to that point. I was not happy. The second point is I was no longer living in good living conditions in Dubai, and the living conditions, they were no longer favorable to me. And I'm gonna try, and I think I've posted a video before on TikTok about the living conditions of how to what point it actually got to. So that is the second point why I decided to quit my job, and I was like, you know what, heck yeah, I'm starting all over. It's just the living conditions, they were no longer favorable to me. The third point is I was away from my daughter for 3 years and I had missed her so much. And at that point, I realized that it was no longer worth it, me being away for so long, and I don't really have anything to show for it. I always had this kind of mindset that if you're going to be away from your loved ones, if you're going to be away from your family, then it has to be worth it. If it is not worth it, if it's gonna be something that one day she's gonna ask me and say, Mom, you were away from me from this certain time, what do you have to show for it? Like, why did you do it? And I didn't have anything to show for it. So I was like, you know what, this is no longer worth it for me to be here, and being away from her, it wasn't really worth it. The fourth point is I could not find a well-paying job. Now what happened is I had prayed. I remember during COVID-19 2020, after where I was working, my first job, I remember them stopping us, because at that time I was working in a restaurant, and I remember them stopping us and telling us that because of COVID-19, they stopped us for a while, and they said once things have like lessened up, like the whole situation got better, once it gets better, they'll call us back to work. So at that time I started praying to God that God, I had some savings. Those are the ones that got me through. I managed to pay my rent because of those savings, because we were stopped from work, and it's not like we were getting paid while we were not going to work. So we were stopped from work and we were not getting paid, so I had to live off of my savings. So at that point I remember praying to God that I'm not going to be in a position whereby I'm going to be asking people for money for rent, and I'm not going to be also in a position whereby I'm going to be telling people back home to send me money for rent. So I was like, I prayed to God at that time, and I was like, if it's meant for me to continue to be in this country, then they are going to call me back to work, and I'm going to go back to work. I'm not gonna run out of money. And I remember that my money was sufficient for me until the point when they called me back. Yeah, I think I only had areas with my rent for only 1 month only, and I managed to speak to the person where I was renting, and he understood, of course, because of the situation, and he understood perfectly, and I went back to work and I managed to pay my rent. So I remember now with my second job, which is the one that I finally quit and decided to come back. With my second job, I remember also praying to God that, God, I need another job. I need a well-paying job for me to stay in this country. If I find a well-paying job, then this is my sign that I'm still supposed to be staying in this country. But if I don't find a well-paying job, then it is also my sign that it's time for me to go. So I started looking for a job while I was on my second job. I started looking for a job, trying to find a well-paying job, but I couldn't find a well-paying job. I couldn't find a well-paying job, which goes back to the first point and the second point, which is I was not happy, and also the second point, which is my living conditions were not favorable. It also goes back to the third point, which says it was not worth it me being away from my daughter for so long, because I needed to be in a position whereby I can provide for her financially. If I cannot provide for my daughter financially, if I'm in a foreign country and I'm living from hand to mouth and I cannot provide for my daughter properly, then that means I'd rather come back home. Because back home, before I moved to Dubai, I was doing quite well. I wasn't so much bad. So I needed to be in a position whereby I am able to finance my daughter. I needed to be in a position whereby I'm able to bring my daughter over to Dubai to visit me. And the only way I could be in that position if I'm being paid well, so that I can also be able to live in a place whereby the conditions are favorable, so that I can also be able to host my mom and my daughter so that they can come and visit me, or I can be flexible enough to be coming back home to visit them more often. But with the job that I was in at that time, it could not afford me to do that. So I realized that this was not worth it. I'm not getting paid enough. I'm trying to find another job that pays well, and I'm not getting a job. So I was like, I guess this is a sign for me to go back. I prayed to God. It's either I find a well-paying job, that's a sign that I'm staying. If I don't find a well-paying job, that's a sign that I'm going back home and I'm starting all over. Now, a lot of people think and believe that at that time I decided to come back because I was pregnant, but that was not the reason. I had decided long before being pregnant that I'm going to go back home. And then I later found out that I was pregnant while I was in the process of coming back home. So it just so happened that I ended up being pregnant, and then I ended up coming back home pregnant. But I had decided way before falling pregnant that I was coming back home. So yeah, that was what happened. So the fifth and final reason why I decided to quit my job in Dubai and come back home and start all over at the age of 30 is, I guess it was really time to start all over. Sometimes we don't really know. Like I said, I prayed to God. I always believe that I have to pray for guidance. Just like Naomi's story, when Naomi spoke to God, and Naomi was in when Naomi was in a foreign country in exile, and Naomi was with her. Now Naomi was with her daughters-in-law, one of which was Ruth, and he told Ruth that, Ruth, when I came to this country, I came with a husband and sons, and I've lost it all. I'm going back home with nothing. And she didn't know what was ahead of her, but God had already prepared a way for her. God had already prepared a path for her. And when she came back, Ruth ended up being married to Boaz, who was wealthy, and which also made Naomi to live off well. So sometimes with the steps that we take, I always pray to God that, please God, order my steps and direct my path, because I don't know what is ahead of me. Only God knows what is ahead of me. Am I supposed to go there? Am I supposed to go to a certain country? Is that place that I am going to, is the land fertile enough for me? Like, is it a kind of land whereby I'm gonna go to that place, and then it's good, the place, the environment is going to receive me well? Because I strongly and firmly believe that there's a place for everyone. Even if it could be in your country, you might not be someone that is gonna move out of your country, but I strongly believe that there's a city and a place for someone. You might not find your breakthrough in your hometown where you grow up, but go to another place and find your breakthrough. It's the same thing is relocating. You might not find your breakthrough in your home country, but go to another country and find your breakthrough. It's the same thing when God would instruct Abraham that, Abraham, go to that certain land and I'm going to make you a father of many nations. He couldn't become a father of many nations where he was, but God knew ahead of him. God knew that if you go to that certain place, you are going to become a father of many nations. Okay guys, I know I'm preaching right now. That was not the intention. So what I'm saying is, I needed to pray to God that, God, you know what is ahead of me. I didn't even know that I had plans, yes, that okay, if I'm ever going to start all over again, I had plans that I needed to study. I had plans that I needed to go to another better country, but I also did not want to go and end up being in the same position that I was in when I was in Dubai. So I needed to come back and I needed to start all over again. Hence now I am currently studying. I am studying to become an educator, and with the skills that I'm getting, I need them for this for the next place that I'm gonna be in, because I refuse that. I don't want to be in another country doing odd jobs again, being underpaid, being undervalued. So I needed to start all over. My final reason is I needed to start all over. It needed to happen. I might have not known it back then, that you know what, it's time for you to start all over. I always tell people when they're trying and struggling and failing to find something that matches up with what they are looking for, and I always say, pray. Those who speak to me, they know that as much as I believe in taking action as a person, I believe in moving and I believe in doing things, I also believe in pray for guidance. Because at some point I would speak to people like, you know what, I'm struggling to find a well-paying job. You know, maybe that person is not in their home country, they're in a foreign country. I'm struggling to find a job, and I'm always like, you know what, and people would be like, I'm thinking of going home or whatever, and I always be like, you know what, pray to God and ask God to guide you. It's not like giving God an ultimatum, but ask God for a sign, like I did. Am I supposed to stay here or am I supposed to go? If I'm supposed to stay here, then make me find a good, well-paying job. If I'm not supposed to stay here, if it's time for me to pack my bags and go, then let me not find that good paying job. It's not all about what I want. At the end of the day, God is the one who knows what is best for me. So yeah, so that's about it, really. That's the reason why I decided to come back, when other people would frown at me and look at me and be like, why did you come back? You know, I still had messages of people asking me when I tell them that I'm back home, and they'll be like, but why did you go back home? And people don't really know like the backstory of why people take decisions that they take. People would just blame you, and people would be like, oh, she came to this certain place, she went to this certain place and she came back with nothing. You don't really know what people go through when they are in other countries. It doesn't automatically mean that when someone is is abroad that things are going well for them. People are scared to go back to their home countries and start all over, because even when you're even when you're in your own country and you're in a different province or different city, people are scared to go back home because they're scared of people laughing at them and saying you came back with nothing. But when someone is out there hustling, you don't really know what someone is going through, and people need to stop intimidating other people from taking decisions that are best for them. Like I said, when Naomi chose to go back, Naomi had nothing and said to Ruth, I came here with everything, but I'm going back to my home country with nothing. But she didn't know that God had already prepared something for her in her home country. When I came back, a lot of people believe that since I'm going to school, I managed to save money, in that is enough for me to go back to school while I was in Dubai. But that was not the case. The kind of jobs that I was doing in Dubai, they were affording me a hand-to-mouth kind of lifestyle, and also while I was there, I wasn't living in good, favorable conditions, so I wouldn't really, I'm grateful for the exposure that I got. It taught me a lot, but it wasn't the best conditions for me. And when I came back here, God had already made a way for me. God had already prepared money for me to start all over, to go back to school. My mom was in a position whereby she was like, what I couldn't do for you back then when you completed high school and I wanted you to go to school, I couldn't do it for you back then, but now I can afford to do it for you. So I am grateful to God for that. And I'm grateful that God is a God of perfect timing, and he surely did say so in his word that when the time is right, I, the Lord, will make it happen for you. So yes guys, that's it for today's video. I hope you loved it. I hope you loved tuning in. I hope you love hearing my reasoning of why I decided to start all over. And I know that you probably have your own story also of starting all over, and I'm glad I could share my story with you. I'm glad I could share my story with someone who might find it inspiring. And I just want to say, guys, don't forget to leave down a comment in the comment section below. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, guys. It helps a lot, and also it helps a lot with the algorithm. And don't forget to subscribe even you haven't yet subscribed to my channel. I do not even know what you are waiting for. Subscribe to that dang channel, okay? And I love you guys long, and I'll definitely see you in the next video.